thanks for joining us today on this channel. If you are new to this channel, my name is Princella Stringer, and I am an empowerment coach for women. And on this Facebook page or on the YouTube channel, depending on where you find us, you will find videos focused on empowerment of women, women's empowerment, videos that hopefully bring you to a place of joy and excitement for the goals that you have in your future, and videos that elevate you to a new level of thinking on the goals that you want to achieve. So today I have with me Dr. Krista Cooper, and she's visiting with me today to talk about what Limitless Woman means to her. And so I'm excited for you all to hear about what she has to share, but I'm also excited because this Saturday on August 17th in Benton Harbor, Michigan, she's going to come to Michigan to share some words at our event also. And the event will have 7 speakers total sharing what they do and how they support women in the work that they do. And the event is called Empowered Woman Join the Sisterhood. And you'll find that link below if you're interested in hearing more about that. But on that note, I'd love for Dr. Krista, if you will introduce us into your world and what you do today, and tell us a little bit about what you may be sharing on Saturday.
Okay. Hi, Princella.
Hi.
So first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to be on your show. I'm super excited. And in the short time that we've gotten to know each other, I've really appreciated getting to know you. So thank you.
Me as well. It's been a joy getting to know you.
Yeah. So I am Dr. Krista Cooper. I'm currently an educator, and my field is social work. But within social work, my field of specialization is reproductive health, and more specifically, women that are undergoing or have lived with reproductive health challenges. So I'm a social work educator, but I also do research with women in this area.
Wonderful. So what led you to what you do today? I'd love for you to share a little more about how this came to be your path.
Okay. So when I was getting my PhD, I researched Afro-Caribbean immigrant women that were living with HIV. And so why did I research this? Well, because my cultural and ethnic background is Jamaican. So my family, my mom and dad came to the U.S. as immigrants back in the 60s. And they settled on the East Coast where there are many Afro-Caribbean immigrants. And because I was like first generation, they were sort of like, listen, you're going to be indoctrinated, okay, with all things Caribbean, all things Jamaican, so you don't lose your culture. So part of that was traveling to Jamaica very frequently as a child, all the way up into my late teenage years. So we were there sometimes once or twice a year. And we would visit with my grandmother and other relatives. And so that gave me a really good opportunity to soak in the culture, soak in the food, go to the beach, be with relatives, all of that. But while I was there, I started to notice as I was growing up, just different cultural nuances, relationship nuances, just ideas and attitudes towards certain things. And one of the things that I noticed was with HIV. And so there was very stigmatized condition, lots of sort of cultural ideations about people with HIV. So not unlike here, in some senses, we make judgments about people, who've got HIV, or, oh, they must have been doing X, Y, and Z. But then when you load on top of that sort of cultural, ideas, then things can get to be a bit interesting. And so I also noticed that it was so stigmatized at the time, whereby a person could be harmed, for example, if they were found to be living with HIV. Things have changed a lot now. There's been a lot more education. There have been several initiatives launched and those types of things. But this is, again, while I was younger, as a teenager. And so when I got to my PhD program, I recognized that there was a lot of literature about African Americans living with HIV, but not so much Afro-Caribbean populations living with HIV. And then more specifically, Afro-Caribbean women, right? So I decided to do my dissertation research in the New York metropolitan area because there's a large concentration of Afro-Caribbean immigrants there. And that was a journey. Anybody who's done their PhD will tell you it's a journey, and an arduous one at times. But what it taught me was that I was passionate about this particular population. But it also taught me sort of the rules of engagement when doing research with individuals, especially with stigmatized or taboo subjects. And so it took me 3 years. So, I mean, 2 years of coursework, then 3 years of tracking down people. I like to call it systematic stalking. So I would do all of the research, and identify those individuals who were in that area and then call them up and then call them again and then call them again and then call them again. I visited, New York a lot of times to meet with these individuals or by phone or whatever. And what I learned is that it's really important when you are researching sensitive topics to, one, be sensitive about the issue, but then also to go through the proper channels. The gatekeepers is what I call them. And so it took me 3 years because I think these individuals knew that because this was a stigmatized subject, because it was sensitive, because in some senses, all it would take would be one phone call back to their home country. And it wasn't just about the individual living with HIV. It could then become about their families. And so these gatekeepers were kind of like, look, okay, we have to trust you, right? Like, we have to, we have to buy into it. You have to show us that you're, that you're really not trying to exploit these individuals, etc. So along the way, I made some very, very good connections. But it taught me about what it takes to engage with individuals. So I think when I actually got to the women, it made it that much sweeter because it was like, wow, I've really built these relationships, but then I'm talking to these amazing women who are to talk to me about this. So I did that, and then I graduated. And I decided when I got my job here in the Midwest at a university to kind of shift the focus from HIV to other like reproductive health issues like fibroids, endometriosis, that kind of thing. And part of that was born out of my own experience living with fibroids. So I had 2 surgeries in under a year. I was constantly having to have IV infusions. I, was poked and prodded so much. I was having to make really difficult medical decisions about my future, not knowing what that would look like. And so
that had to be terrifying.
It was terrifying. It was difficult. I mean, it was isolating. It was all of those things. But the thing that I found was that the more that I started becoming curious about it and talking to other women, the more they started talking to me.
Oh.
What I was hearing back were these horror stories, of women who had dealt with these conditions for decades, that their lives had been impacted. And so that got me thinking, well, okay, if I'm just talking to these women, out on the street or at the grocery store, or even women in my family that I didn't even know, right, where we're going through some of these things, then what would it be like if I researched? And so I decided then I got a grant to research women living with symptomatic uterine fibroids, because not every woman who has fibroids is symptomatic. But there's so many conditions that they can produce, infertility, bloating, pressure, pain with sex. There's just so many, and some of them are so debilitating.
Right.
So I got the grant and I started doing this research and just felt so completely honored to be sharing time and space with these women. But it also made me continue to reflect on my journey, and in a way that I hadn't done so previously. So sometimes I think when we set out to do something, the greatest blessing turns out to be for us, because we start to realize, like, wow, hold on, So that is why, I ended up researching this area, but then also wanting to do more beyond the research, because the idea is that, I can do the research, I publish, and that's so important. However, the audience that I'm publishing to, only X percentage of the population is reading those journal articles. But what about the women who are at-home moms, or they're, at work, or just, in our everyday society? I wanted to find a way to reach them as well.
Right. Wow. I could see how it all comes full circle with what you've been able to do for the HIV population. That brought me back to my 20-somethings. I'm 47 now, and during my 20s, I remember my girlfriend and I deciding to go get tested for HIV. And we went together, and so it wasn't really talked about, but we knew that we needed to go do it. We knew it was just out there in all kinds of media. I was going to say social media, but it wasn't exactly the same.
Right.
To do it, to get tested and to find out. And I remember sitting in the waiting room, and I can't remember if we went in at the same time. I think it was pretty close to the same time. But I came out, and I'm sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting for her to come out. And I'm going, it just terrified me. And it was, and finding out that we did not have HIV, thank God, and we were on a healthy path. But it just put a lot of fear and care and love in my heart for those that were facing a different outcome. So yeah, that was getting that perspective and understanding of like a tiny, I don't even want to compare it to someone's experience that actually was ill. But what I mean to say is that it's a tough conversation to have and to go deeper with, especially for someone that's facing a more traumatic experience. And then the other topic that you talk about, you've really set yourself up for some really brave, tough conversations that are so needed to have been had. And today is so needed as well for women to feel empowered to speak their truth and the struggles that they're going through. And so I love what you're doing and touching on an angle that's personal to you, but also a topic that women really want to be more open about so that they can get some more support in that area.
Yeah. It's ironic that it's so stigmatized and so taboo, because if you look in or listen in popular media, well, there's, all kinds of songs and all, on movies and whatever. And so it becomes okay in one context, but not in another context where we can actually, talk about it, name body parts, know what they do, and really embrace, who we are. There's so many messages that come through about the perfect body, or, or sexualization of women and young girls and things like that. So it's ironic that in our society, that when our reproductive systems don't function, in a way that we would like them to, that it's so taboo to talk about, because there's so much in your face, sort of media about women's bodies, but yet we're not encouraged to embrace them or to embrace the trauma that comes along with having, various conditions, whether that be you had a miscarriage, or you have fibroids, or you had a hysterectomy, or, those types of things. Suddenly then it becomes, we can't talk about that, and I think that needs to be changed, and it needs to be normalized, where it's seen as healthy to be able to, freely discuss that and to provide safe places for women to do so.
Right. I've never looked up any kind of data on this, but I've heard before that in America, the woman's body is so sexualized so much more than in other parts of the world. And then, but also in other parts of the world, you can't say the word period without people just like blushing and hiding. Right. And so, around the globe, it's different. It needs to be approached differently, especially here in America, where we are a multicultural uh, country, and yet divided. But I mean, that's a whole other topic. My point is that we're a mix of all these cultural differences, and then also a country that, you know, women are so sexualized in the media and in movies and in music and all these things. So gosh, yeah, how do you have the discussion? But asking the right questions and opening the doors for women, that is how we find out how you have the discussions. So this is so awesome that we can do this today.
Yeah.
And in an online space where everybody can join the conversation if they wanted to.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing so much about your journey in your education and in your personal life too. So I want to ask you, you have made some really brave moves in your life and stepped into some areas of study that are extremely brave and vulnerable and tough. So what do you see? What does Limitless Woman mean to you when you think about the journey that you've been on and the journey you hope to be in, and what you envision and see for women in general or for yourself? How do you see this term that I love to use, Limitless Woman?
I think for me, it means embodiment. It means being present in your own body, occupying your own space, you know, being present with your own story, you know, understanding how your past, your present, and your future are all connected, but not lingering, you know, in those areas. So I think, you know, it's sort of like doing an inventory where you kind of say, you go through, if you had a warehouse, you would go through the warehouse and you would, you know, have a list and you would say, yep, I've got X amount of this, X amount of that, or I need to order this or that, or, you know, whatever. And so doing an inventory of our lives, you know, and saying, hey, here are some of the things that I would like. But let me go back and look and see, was I set up to have those things? You know, what happened in my past? You know, how is my past contributing to what I have or what I don't have? And if I don't have it, then what is it that I need to order? So if you were in the warehouse, you would say, oh, well, I only have 2 of these. I need 10, so I need to order some. So it's kind of like, what would I order? What is it that I need to order? Or what kind of skill sets do I need to be able to get the things that, you know, I'm currently lacking? And then what do I want my future to look like? So if I get all this stuff in my inventory, then it's sort of like, okay, so maybe that can set me up for this. Or maybe, you know, I have this goal. So what do I need to do in the here and now to get that? Yeah. So not getting stuck in your past, being very present in your future, in your present, and then, you know, looking forward to the future. And we both know that based on, you know, life circumstances, there can be times where we do get stuck or we do, you know, function in a capacity without hope, or, you know, we begin to despair about certain things. But that's when you kind of call your crew and, you know, your tribe, and you kind of say, look, guys, you know, I'm having this difficulty. So whether that's faith for you, I know it has been for me. My faith has seen me through, you know, a whole lot. But I've also had people, you know, in my corner that have been there for me, that have said, come on, Krista, like, you know, we're praying for you. Or sometimes you just need that kick, you know, like, hey, come on, what are you doing? You know? So I've been very blessed, you know, in that way. But I think if I was to define what that means for me, being a limitless woman, is occupying, you know, my own space, being embodied in my own story, very present for it. And that way I think I can be present for other women, other people, right? When I know what I need, when I know what I'm lacking, when I know my triggers, when I know all of that, then it sets me up to be in a space where I can ask for those things, you know, or I can figure out, okay, well, how do I get them, you know, if I don't have them? So,
right.
Yeah, I think that's what that means for me.
I love it. So tell me a little bit about some influences that have happened in your life. Now, who has been an influence for you that really inspired you to do what you do today, to go after the goals that you want to achieve at this point in your life? And so share with us some of those people that have been in your circle.
Okay. Well, gosh, I mean, there's so many people that I could name, honestly. But if I had to choose two people, one of them would be my grandma, because that woman, she was fearless. I mean, she would just, yeah, she was pretty fearless. And I think she wanted to instill that in me, a type of like resiliency and willingness to not back down from something that you really wanted, to work hard, you know, for things. I think she's one of the main reasons I'm a researcher. Um, she brought me an Encyclopedia Britannica set. And whenever I would ask her questions, she would say, go look it up, you know? So I learned, you know, very early, like how to do that. And then if I had questions, I would ask her, you know, that
Yes.
type. So I would definitely say she's one. And then my 10th grade American Lit teacher, who I still talk to this day, her name is Maxine Mitchell. And she is just, oh my gosh, like an amazing woman. She's just, I mean, you just kind of want to like pull up a chair or a pillow and just sit and stare up at her and be like, tell me everything you know. You know, she's just so wise, you know, and willing to share from her experience. Very classy, you know, just an all around amazing woman that, you know, has broken barriers in her lifetime, and, you know, who has just, I think, learned to appreciate life, and for whom faith is very important. So I really am so grateful that she's been a part of my journey.
What a blessing to have these women in your life. That's wonderful. So on that note, I thank you so much for sharing so much of your journey and the women in your life. And thank you for being here. So if anyone has any questions for Dr. Krista Cooper on the topic that we talked about, or just anything in general, leave a message here, leave a comment here, and we will come back to the messages and reply to those for sure. I also want to mention again how you will be one of our speakers at Empowered Women Join the Sisterhood event that's happening this weekend in Benton Harbor, Michigan. If you're local here, as I said earlier, I will leave a link in the comments so that you can see and learn about the other speakers that we will have at this event as well. We'll have a full day of inspiring stories and also time for some support too and any questions that you have on the topics that we talk about. We have breakfast and lunch provided. So come on out and visit with us at the event this Saturday on August 17th. And we'd love to see you there. So on that note, thank you so much for joining me, Krista. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.